culture of our school, it changes, not necessarily dependent upon the adults. And we can pray for students, encourage students, there's no doubt. But at some point, they have to take ownership themselves to make a change here at our school. And that's what I was trying to get through. And I think a few juniors and seniors are getting together and working together as far as praying and getting together before school starts. But I think that's a big part of school culture as well. Principal Laura Garza of Ann Webb Elementary, she said this about student culture. She said, students check out because they were in an environment defined by low expectations. Students check out because they were in an environment defined by low expectations. Then she goes on to say, you can't blame your students for your school's culture. They simply follow the adults. You can't blame your students for the school's culture. They simply follow adults. And I agree with that to a point. But except, like I said, about the spiritual culture of our school, we can encourage and we can push and we can lead. But at some point, the upperclassmen, even the freshmen, they have to take ownership themselves, and it's going to be on their shoulders. I don't know if you guys are familiar with the actress Emily Blunt. Most people know her as a Golden Globe nominated film stage actress, but between the ages of 7 and 14, she developed a crippling, she would stutter. And she had problems stuttering, and she was so frustrated because she couldn't even hold a simple conversation with people. And she was very discouraged. She said, I had a lot to say, but I just couldn't get it out. I had a lot to say, but I just couldn't get it. And she was very frustrated. And it was a junior high teacher that made an impact on Emily Blunt's life. They claimed that they could, she couldn't speak in front of people or she would stutter, but they encouraged her to try out for the school play, which initially she resisted going out for the school play. But this junior high teacher kept on coming to her and encouraging her to try out again and again. And she finally gave in. And not only did she start trying out for school plays, but she started taking acting lessons. And then she started experimenting with different voices and accents to help express herself. And not only now today is she known as a Golden Globe actress and is very successful in her career, but she is on the board of directors for the American Institute of Stuttering. And when I think of Emily Blunt and I think of that teacher that encouraged her or pushed her, that was a part of the school culture. And if that teacher didn't go out of their way to speak to her or encourage her, we don't know where she would be. But school culture is definitely important, and as we talk further about it, you guys have been teaching 5, 10, 15, 20 years. You've definitely seen a difference in school cultures, from the years of teaching. What are some of the things that you saw early on as far as coming in teaching introductory, Don? You've been teaching for several years.
Well, and most of my teaching experience has been here. So I can reflect back 15, 16, 17 years here. And it seemed like what students came in the door with is different. When they came in the door, you had, I think, a lot more students 15 years ago who I think had perhaps a little bit better overall parent support, value of education, love of learning. And they walked in the door that we didn't have to construct that. We didn't have to build that. We didn't have to make that happen. It was part of the culture because they walked in the door with it. I don't see as much of that now. And so what I struggle with is, can we build that? Or, how much because you can be the most positive teacher in the world and encouraging, but if they walk in the door with a lot of baggage of, but I'm not smart, I'm not good at, school, I'm not good at math, I'm not good at whatever, then we're having to counteract a lot more of things we're inheriting from their life outside of school. That's what I see.
So you're saying that there's more family involvement, parental involvement years ago, and now,
yes.
Of course, blended families, divided families.
Complicated.
There's no doubt. So you're saying we probably need to debrief and maybe pour more spiritual truth in there to some point and try to meet them where they're at, and then try to hit the other areas.
Even reaching beyond the student, trying to reach the homes.
Reach the homes, absolutely. The parents and the homes that are here, for sure. Why does it, when we think of student culture or we think of school culture, why does it matter? Why would you say it matters?
Because I think it's because of what they carry with them the rest of their lives. I mean, I'm not saying a person can't change, obviously they can, but a lot of times I think the more you you look at the ones that are coming here that you constantly are in the offices, where are they 10 years from now, 20 years from now? And I'm sure there's some that do fine and do great, you know, but it sets that pattern to kind of not necessarily follow the right track, you know?
Okay,
So,
absolutely, there's patterns that are set, for sure.
I think it gives the student the mindset of whether or not they're gonna succeed. If the culture is great and you've come from a setting as to which you feel like you need to be able to blend in with a culture that's great, you feel like you have an opportunity to get to know people, to be a part of that culture and help it succeed.
Right.
Now, on the other hand, if it's not a great culture and you've been doing something and you feel happy right now, do you think you really wanna come in and be a part of that culture?
Right.
Are you gonna find somebody that's bringing that culture down or helping bring you down from where you were at? And it works on the student once they get there.
Yeah.
It works on them.
I think if they enjoy being here, if they feel like they fit in, they're ready to learn.
Mhm.
I think a lot of times you get a student come in the room and because, I don't know, they feel like they don't fit, or people don't like them, or
Yeah.
they don't value themselves at all, they don't see themselves the way Christ sees them, you know, the way God sees them, and they come in like that, that's all gonna be dealt with before they're even open to learn. I don't care what the subject is, I don't care if it's Bible class or math or science or whatever it is, they're not ready to learn.
Exactly.
And so if that culture is right, now, okay, all that's out of the way, now, okay, what can I learn to go to the next level and next step? And so, I think a positive culture is critically important if any real learning takes place.
Absolutely, so,
If you don't mind, just, there's a statement that says, you know, misery loves company.
mhm.
I mean, but the fact is, if that culture is great, that person is ready to learn, they're engaged. Someone else that may be feeling the same thing may be engaged just as well by seeing that person engaged. And knowing those people that come in their first year students or whatever, and they see that, they tend to gravitate towards that and want to be a part of that.
I think you guys hit it right on the head. You've got students that come in from maybe from other schools or transfer in from different states. And if they had a great experience at another high school somewhere else, and it was wonderful, and if they come here and the culture is different and it's not encouraging, will they want to learn? Will they come to a classroom ready to learn? Will they think about, "Well, I wish I was back at this school?" And to some extent, we have students that do that. But just the opposite can take place as well. If we have a culture that's at our school, that's welcoming, that's encouraging, that's inviting, I think that's the foundational level of school culture, accepting people and encouraging people, and then in efforts they can learn. So we're gonna start with the foundational things, and there's three things that we're gonna focus on this initiative. The first thing is this: it's important teachers at the beginning of each day, I want to see teachers standing at their door, and I want to see teachers greeting students by their first name and having eye contact with them. I think that's key, and you guys do a great job of this because I see it in the practice gym and by the gymnasium and Don's at the crosswalk. Now, Pierce, I don't get to see you too much, but I'm sure you do a good job as well. But that's the first initiative that we're gonna have, guys, is I wanna create a culture or have a culture where teachers are literally at the door, and as they go back to the door, and the door's open, and as students are starting to walk in towards the door, I want to see the teacher greet them by name, first name, shake their hand or pat them on the back, but I want to see eye contact. And I think a lot of times we minimize eye contact. We've got a culture today of young people, even adults, they're so busy looking down at their iPads, at their iPhones, and they're not engaged. They're not engaged. Well, they're engaged in something, but they're not engaged where you want them to be. And as I think of that, and I see high school students, and my wife sees it at the college level, students that when she asks questions or she tries to interact, it's like they might have 1 or 2 word answers, and that's it. There's a shutdown. There's not much going on there. And I think it's important for teachers, for us as teachers and staff, to go ahead and make sure when the students are coming through that we look at them in the eye and that we say their name and give some type of physical contact. Maybe it's a pat on the back, maybe it's a fist bump, just to let them know we're there. And when they don't look at you in the eye, I know this might be kind of awkward, but we're gonna ask the students to look at us in the eye. When they're looking down, you might say, you know, you're walking through, they're walking through, and as they're walking through, you might say, hey, good morning, John, and John's like, good morning, like that. We're gonna have to stop these students and wait a second. Hey, John, I'm right here. And I've been guilty with my son, because I'm big about that with eye contact, and we go out to restaurants to eat, our family does, and all of a sudden, the waitress is asking for the order, and he's mumbling and he won't look up, and I'm like, eyes, look up, and it's embarrassing, but he'll look up, and he'll look at her in the eye and tell her what he wants, and I'm like, good. I wanna make sure that we have that as a school, so we're gonna practice that in a few minutes. That's the first thing. But the second thing is this, we need to have uniform class rules as teachers. We need to have uniform class rules as teachers. And I'm not saying the teacher can't have their own environment, I'm not saying at all, but I really believe our school across the board has to have these uniform rules. What are some of the rules in your classes that you have? What are some of the rules that you have typically in your classes?
Mine is that when someone's talking, everybody else is quiet.
Absolutely, I've got that one too, I'll share that in a second. Good.
I was thinking, maybe remind the discussion rules, because initially when you come to the classroom, it's, you know, raise your hand or something, wait to be called on to, you know, because we're doing a lot of things in the class, but often when we get into a lesson or a discussion, or whatever, discussion rules are, anybody can talk, as long as they stay on the subject.
Right.
Number two, you know, talking when everybody else is talking, and once I talk, everybody stops, you know, because I'm giving instructions and things like that. But a lot of that is mutual respect.
Right, right.
So.
Good. Good, so we're along the same lines.
From that, perch of, when I'm talking, nobody else is talking, because it's hard for me to talk to everybody else, somebody else is trying to talk, and you got 2 or 3 people talking at the same time. We get nothing accomplished.
It's all out chaos, is what takes place. What about you guys, any particular class rules that you have?
Don't touch the timpani unless I say so.
Don't touch the timpani, unless I say so, okay, good.
And for me, I think it's be respectful of the
different.
students around you. It's a different setting than from a classroom, but, I mean, it's definitely a challenge for sure, but it's to be respectful of the other students around you, so.
Absolutely. Years ago, when I started teaching, I came up with these 4 class rules. You know, they said, don't have 20 rules or 10 rules, just keep it simple. And I had 4 class rules, and I still hold, they're kind of, I don't say corny, but these 4 class rules, I still hold to them today. Number 1 is must be in your seat when the bell rings. Bell rings, you gotta be in your seat. That's number 1. Number 2, no talking in class unless called upon. Unless your hand's up, that's when you can talk. Number 3 is we don't put others down. We don't make fun of people. We don't mock them, whatever. We just don't do it. I always say, why would your parents pay thousands of dollars for you to come to a Christian school or private school to get made fun of when you can go to public school and it can be for free? So I say, don't put others down. But number 4 is absolutely no disrespect. No talking back, and I give the young ladies a hard time because sometimes, you know, I'll say something, they'll roll their eyes back like that. I'm like, no, we're not rolling the eyes, we're not mumbling under the breath, it's just those 4 things. And it's worked for the most part pretty well. Students kind of fall in line with those rules. But I think as a school, we have to have uniform class rules, and it sounds like definitely in your classrooms, I know you guys have different, you know, being in PE and being in music, it's different. I think we have to have those in classrooms for sure, those classroom rules. So that's the second thing, second issue we're going to go through. And number 3 is this. When other students help out, I want his or her peers, I want them to be praised in the classroom. I want an audible praise. When you see another student helping out another student, whether picking up the books or, I think we as teachers, we minimize that. We might think to ourselves, that's a great thing that they did, and we might give out knight's gold, so to speak, sometimes for different things. But I don't think we praise the students enough when they're doing the right thing, and that's a positive initiative. That's a positive twist in the school culture there. I want to do this. I want to role play real quick, guys. Let's say we're on day 3 of school, or day 5 of school, and students, the right way to have eye contact when they come through the door, okay? And then we're going to do the wrong way, and I want to see you guys role play. So, E.T., I'm going to have you and Pierce. I'll have you at the door.